Back to America's election headquarters. Here's the polls just out. Donald Trump is still leading among GOP presidential hopefuls, and that is according to our first set of polls that were taken entirely after the big debate. Dr. Ben Carson and Texas Senator Ted Cruz round out the top three. Both have surged as a result of their debate performance. But the night's big winner, as we now can know, is Carly Fiorina. Debate watchers chose her as the top performer. But to break out of the pack, she might need to help build on that momentum.
Yeah, let's break it down with our fair and balanced panel. John Hart is the editor-in-chief of Opportunity Lives. Doug Thornell is the former lead spokesman for the DCCC. Gentlemen, welcome to you both.
Hi, Shannon.
Hey, good to be with you.
All right, John, I'll start with you. We talked there about Carly Fiorina, and among those who watched the debate, 13%, that put her in first place. They thought she won the debate. She wasn't even in the top 10 debate. What does that say to you about her ability? What does she need to do to capitalize on that?
Well, I think she may break into the top 10, and after that performance, I think she probably will. But, Shannon, I think the big news with this poll is that 3/4 of Republicans don't want Donald Trump to be the nominee. So it's not uncommon at this stage in the race for someone to surge ahead. Rick Santorum surged last time. But voters are going to figure out that Donald Trump is more of a comedian than he is a conservative, and he has a very confused record. He's been all over the map on health care, on social issues, and his immigration plan is incoherent. He wants to do mass deportation and reimportation. So I think the way other candidates like Fiorina and others can trump Trump, so to speak, is to be specific on border security. There's a real hunger for reform on border security, and speak honestly about that issue. Look, we can't have a nation without secure borders. Scott Walker's put out a plan. Others are going to do that as well. And again, just to understand that Donald Trump is tapping into something, a real hunger, but Trump is empty calories. He's funnel cake and cotton candy at the state fair. He's not the real substance. So the more our candidates can deliver substance and solutions, I think that Trump will fade eventually.
Well, there's no question that a lot of folks like funnel cake and corn dogs. Corn dogs
I
at
like
the state fair.
Not before the roller coasters, though.
Well, exactly. But people have very, very firm feelings on food, as they do on likability about candidates, what they like, what they don't like. I thought this number was interesting in terms of likability and not likability. Ben Carson has surged in terms of likability. 0% of the people polled say they don't like him. He's up by 19 is his net. Ben Carson, the most likable coming out of this. The least likable person in this whole race is, well, take a look, Donald Trump. Negative 37 on least likable. His net is also way negative as well. My question for you, Doug, is it more important at this point, 6 months before Iowa, to look at the top numbers in the poll, who's leading, who's not? Or is it more important to delve down deeper in the data and look at stuff like likability and figuring out that Trump has this huge underwater spread?
It's a great question, and John and I were talking about this in the green room. Right now, I think voters are kind of shopping around for candidates. And, 4 years ago, Herman Cain was probably leading the Republican field. And right now, there's a real hunger and appetite for what Donald Trump is saying, and he's really tapping into some emotions that are in the Republican Party and also outside of the Republican Party. I think that you kind of have to look at a number of things. I think that for Donald Trump, if you're looking at these numbers, the top three folks who are leading your poll are all considered outsider Republicans. So if you're Donald Trump, that should be encouraging to you because maybe those are votes that you can pick up. The other thing that you should look at is who's people's second choice. And so for Donald Trump, in order for him to be successful, he's going to have to pick up the second choice voters for people like Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush, your establishment types of candidates.
Does anybody want Trump as their second choice now? I haven't heard much talk about that.
I don't think so. I think Trump is a first choice candidate. He's somebody that people are trying out. They want to see how he performs as a front runner, and I think he'll run his course just as Rick Santorum did in the past year. Rick Santorum is now at 1%, so that's a huge spread from where he was just a few years ago.
What's really interesting though that I've heard over the course of this whole Trump saga, everyone has tried to write him off. Before he got in, everyone said he wasn't really going to get in. He was using this to negotiate with NBC. And then when he got in, people would say that, Republicans in particular, that, he was only going to stay in for a few weeks. Now he's been in for several months, and he remains at 24%. He's got a durable number there. The question is, can he bump it up?